and welcome to Stories Mother Told. Our story today is from the beautiful country of Tanzania. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Let me take you back to Africa. Today's story is titled The Kite and the Crows. One day, the Sultan of the Crows sent a letter to the Sultan of the Kites. The letter contained these few words: "I want you folks to be my soldiers." To this brief message, the Sultan of the Kites at once wrote this short reply: "I should say not." Thereupon, thinking to scare him, the Sultan of the Crows sent his word: "If you refuse to obey me, I'll make war upon you." To which the Sultan of the Kites replied, "That suits me. Let us fight, and if you beat us, we will obey you. But if we are victors, you shall be our servants." So they gathered their forces and engaged in a great battle, and in a little while, it became very evident that the crows were being badly beaten. As it appeared certain that if something were not done pretty quickly, they would all be killed, one old crow suddenly proposed that they should all fly away. As soon as the suggestion was made, it was acted upon, and the crows left their homes and flew far away, where they set up another town. So when the kites entered the place, they found no one there, and they took over their residence in Crow Town. One day, when the crows had gathered in council, the Sultan stood up and said, "My people, do as I command you, and all will be well. Pluck out some of my feathers and throw me in the town of the kites. Then come back and stay here until you hear from me." Without argument or questioning, the crows obeyed their Sultan's command. The Sultan had lain in the streets but a short time when some passing kites saw him and inquired threateningly, "What are you doing here in our town?" With many a moan, he replied, "My companions have beaten me and turned me out of their town because I advised them to obey the Sultan of the Kites." When they heard this, they picked him up and took him before the Sultan, to whom they said, "We found this fellow lying in the streets, and he attributes his involuntary presence in our town to so singular a circumstance that we thought you should hear his story." The Sultan of the Crows was then bidden to repeat his statement, which he did, adding the remark that as much as he had suffered, he still held to his opinion that the Sultan of the Kites was his rightful Sultan. This of course made a very favorable impression, and the Sultan said, "You have more sense than all the rest of your tribe put together. I guess you can stay here and live with us." So the Sultan of the Crows, expressing much gratitude, settled down, apparently to spend the remainder of his life with the kites. One day, his neighbors took him to church with them, and when they returned home, they asked him, "Who have the best kind of religion, the kites or the crows?" The crafty old Sultan replied very enthusiastically, "Oh, the kites by long odds." This answer tickled the kites like anything, and the Sultan was looked upon as a bird of remarkable discernment. When almost another week had passed, the Sultan of the Crows slipped away in the night, went to his own town and called his people together. "Tomorrow," said he, "is the great annual religious festival of the kites, and they will all go to church in the morning. Go now and get some wood and some fire, and wait near the town until I call you. Then come quickly and set fire to the church." Then he hurried back to the kite town. The crows were very busy indeed all that night, and by dawn they had an abundance of wood and fire at hand, and were lying in wait near the town of their victorious enemies. So in the morning, every kite went to church. There was not one person left at home, except the old Sultan. When his neighbors called for him, they found him lying down. "Why?" they exclaimed with surprise. "Are you not going to church today?" "Oh," said he, "I wish I could, but my stomach aches so badly I can't move." And he groaned dreadfully. "Ah, poor fellow," said they, "you will be better in bed," and they left him to himself. As soon as everybody was out of sight, he flew swiftly to his soldiers and cried, "Come on, they're all in church." Then they all crept quickly but quietly to the church, and while some piled wood about the door, others applied fire. The wood caught readily, and the fire was burning fiercely before the kites were aware of the danger. But when the church began to fill with smoke and tongues of flame shot through the cracks, they tried to escape through the windows. The greater part of them, however, were suffocated or having their wings singed could not fly away, and so were burnt to death. Among them was their sultan. The crows got their old town back again, and from that day, the kites fly away from the crows. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. As usual, please do not forget to rate and review the podcast on iTunes and wherever else you listen to the podcast. Also, do not forget to hit that subscribe button and share this podcast with a friend. If there are any stories you would like to listen to, send me an email at storiesmothertold@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can follow us on Instagram at storiesmothertold. Until next week, see ya.